meeting with a delegation of the Arab and Islamic gathering in support of resistance, President Al-Assad stresses the importance of steadfastness against foreign plots and schemes. The government studies the draft general budget of next year, and Al-Halaqi asserted the continuation of the policy of increased development and war against corruption. Units of the Syrian Arab Army restore peace and security to more than 40 villages in the Aleppo countryside and 2 villages near Damascus. Good afternoon, I'm Dani Nizam, welcoming you to the news bulletin this afternoon. The developing events on the Arab and Islamic arenas were discussed by President Bashar al-Assad and the delegation of the Arab and Islamic gathering to support the option of resistance led by the Secretary-General Dr. Yehya Ghaddar. The delegation briefed the President on the meeting held in Beirut, asserting that Syria's steadfastness and the full awareness of its people and armed forces foiled all the plots against Syria's pioneering role of resistance. The delegation also asserted that it was time for all the Arab and Islamic people to shoulder their responsibilities to consolidate the steadfastness which achieved triumph and protected Syria and all the Islamic people from danger. The President stressed the importance of steadfastness in order to foil all the plots and schemes which target the Arab and Islamic world. The President stressed the important role of all the elite national forces in consolidating resistance, particularly among the young generations, to protect and preserve the unity of the Arab and Islamic identity and the interests of these people. In the Damascus countryside, units of the Syrian army found a storehouse of ammunition containing explosive devices, mortar shell bombs, binoculars and large amounts of stolen medicine in the town of Al-Ziyabiyah. The army also discovered a 70-meter-long tunnel extending under Sayyida Zainab Highway, supplied with ventilation and electric power. Units of the Syrian army cooperating with the people imposed full control on the town of Tel Fita and the surrounding area in the northern Damascus countryside. They defeated the terrorists of the so-called Jabhat al-Nusra, which spread chaos and panic and destroyed the weapons and equipment of the terrorists. The army also destroyed a storehouse of weapons and vehicles used by the terrorists in the area of Al-Nabak. The army also defeated terrorists in Al-Qabun, Barze, Jobar and Zamalka. In the eastern Ghouta, groups of terrorists were defeated and left dead or wounded in the nearby villages. A tractor was destroyed in the town of Al-Rihan, where it was used by the terrorists to block the streets of the town. In Hujayra, the Syrian army destroyed machine guns and ammunition used by the terrorists. Meanwhile, a unit of the Syrian army killed 2 terrorists in Spain. Many terrorists were also killed or wounded in the town of Al-Buwaida, and their weapons and equipment were destroyed. Units of the Syrian army attacked terrorist groups in the Nabak, Yabrud, western Malula and eastern Jirud in the Damascus countryside, killing and wounding large numbers of them, including Nazih Ayman al-Huz, the largest financier of the terrorists in Nabak. The operations of the Syrian army in the eastern Ghouta led to the death and wounding of several terrorists. Units of the Syrian army continued their operations to restore security and stability. They opened the highway of Hama Aleppo in Khanasir and defeated the terrorist groups. More than 40 villages were controlled by the army and the tunnels were destroyed. Some of them were 5 kilometers long. The army confiscated large amounts of heavy weapons, equipment, rocket launchers and anti-armor missiles. The army also defused more than 600 anti-armor mines and 1,500 explosive devices. More than 20 terrorist hideouts were also destroyed. The army attacked terrorist groups in Manbij and Maskara, killing and wounding many of them and destroying their equipment and vehicles. The army also destroyed terrorist groups in several villages in the Aleppo countryside. The Ministry of Social Affairs, in cooperation with Damascus Countryside Governorate and the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, carried 2,000 women and children who were freed after being held hostage by terrorist groups from the area of Muaddamiyya to Sham to temporary housing centers. The women and children were carried to housing centers via buses, while the sick and the elderly people were carried by ambulances provided by the SARC. Minister of Social Affairs Kandar Shamat said that this step was taken after the terrorists started to prevent supplies and relief aid from reaching the area where the people were located, affirming the government's commitment to provide good living conditions to those people. In turn, Governor of Damascus Countryside Hussein Khallouf said that the governorate provided the temporary housing centers and the supplies needed for the people to help them overcome the ordeals they experienced. General Coordinator of this initiative, Fadia Laham, said that more women and children and the elderly people will be evacuated from Muaddamiyya to Sham, in addition to the people who need urgent medical aid. The evacuation is carried out in cooperation with local sides and the authorities. Khallouf and Laham highlighted the role of the armed forces in helping to evacuate the citizens from the area. Shamat and Khallouf supervised the arrival and reception of the citizens at a housing center in Qudsiya area, the distribution of humanitarian aid among them, and conducting medical exams. After the failure of the plot of Al-Qaeda in Syria, this terrorist organization began to utilize their tools of the Muslim Brothers as a spearhead of Al-Qaeda war on the Arab armies. The leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, called for targeting the Egyptian and Tunisian armies in order to destroy the last bloc, which prevents the plot of imposing Western hegemony on this region.
The International Organization of the Muslim Brotherhoods, in collusion with the US, continued its attempts to break up the Egyptian army, which stands against their scheme to swallow Egypt after they failed to swallow Syria and Iraq to serve the interests of Israel.
في مصر فإن ما شهدته مؤخرا من جرائم على أيدي جزار الانقلاب العسكري المتأمرك.
Al-Zawahiri renewed his call for the Muslim Brotherhoods and fanatic groups to target the Egyptian and Tunisian armies. Al-Zawahiri claimed that these two armies were against Islam. The Muslim Brotherhoods and Al-Qaeda, supported by Washington, consider themselves enemies of the National Arab Armed Forces. They endeavor to enable the terrorist gangs in Sinai to set up an emirate to bleed the Egyptian army on the borders of occupied Palestine. These gangs wage daily attacks on the Egyptian army, killing and wounding innocent victims. These acts of terrorism remind us of Al-Zawahiri's calls to the extremist fanatics in Syria to target the Syrian army.
وأؤكد لإخواني المجاهدين في الشام المبارك أن يتحدوا.
هذه بيعة من أبناء جبهة النصرة.
The calls of Al-Zawahiri led to terrorist crimes against innocent military and civilian victims, reminding us of the crimes of Al-Qaeda in Yemen, Iraq, Libya and Tunisia. This shows a systematic plot with various roles of terrorist groups attacking Arab national security, in line with Washington's conspiracy to create chaos in the so-called New Middle East, to serve the interests of Israel through creating ethnic and sectarian conflicts in many countries throughout this region.
And this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching us. For more details about Syria and the region, you can view our bulletin on syriaonline.sy in English. Thank you for watching. God bless you all. And victory is imminent. After the break, it's Vani with our economic and business news.
Good afternoon. The Cabinet discussed the 2014 state budget in its weekly session that was held in Damascus, headed by Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi. The Cabinet discussed the repercussions of the terrorist attacks on the Syrian economy, the challenges of the increased public spending, and the prices of goods and services. They also discussed means of alleviating the impact of the crisis on citizens through taking many measures, such as interference in the foreign currency market, increasing wages of employees, subsidizing basic materials, and observing markets to control prices. They said that the government is exerting all efforts to provide residence for the displaced families that were forced to leave their houses. The Directorate of Agriculture in Tartus Governorate anticipated the production of olive oil for this year to be 5,000 tons and 30,000 tons of olive. The Specialized Office's director said that olive cultivation is very important. It constitutes 83% of the overall planted area of fruitful trees at the Governorate, while the overall planted area is more than 73,000 hectares. The sales at the Hama branch of seed establishment reached more than 1,500 tons of fertilized wheat from the farmers of Hama, while 78 tons of wheat seeds have been shipped to the Tartus branch of the establishment. The branch manager said that the branch is fertilizing the received wheat. And now over to some main currencies exchange rates according to the bulletin of the Central Bank of Syria. With this, we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.